Hello, we're good. Just a couple seconds here. I don't think we're live quite yet. And one, boom, now we're live. All right. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
And look who I've got back with me. I've got Jason from Discover Your Light. I love your new channel name. That's perfect. So, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
I'm glad you're back. Yep. And we have several people in the chat already. So, we'll say hello to them in a minute. If you are new here, Jason is a lifetime or an expert lifetime regressionist. So I still have lots to talk about with him. So we're going to do some questions first. And if you guys have any questions aimed at Jason, we will do that. And then if we have time, we'll go into readings after. But we want to do our chat first and highlight on that, I think, this time. So we'll do that. Let me say hello to a few people. Let's see who is here. We had Lisa come in first. So, Lisa, you get your channel highlighted. You were in first. So, everybody, please subscribe to Lisa as well as Jason, and I'll get to his information in a minute. But Lisa will be the channel of the day with Jason. We'll have co channels. All right. And she's just starting off too. So, brand new channel. Jackie Jacaranda is here. Hello. And hi there, Miss Nancy. Welcome. And we have Poetic Justice Jeff Bailey. Hello, welcome. And Michelle's here. Hey, Michelle. Welcome. Glad you are here. And oops, chat jumped. Hold on 1 second. And Pooja is here. Hey, Pooja, welcome. And Teresa, hello. Another fine Saturday. Yeah, happy Saturday, everybody. Get some time off is a good thing. For most of us, we have some time off, right? And let me see who else we got here. Thomas is here. Hey, Thomas from Tarot Your Way. And Linda is here. Welcome, Linda. And I think that is where we're at. All right, guys. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And so, what we'll do is I'll do like regular my intro to Jason. And like I said, he is an expert lifetime regressionist. And I love that besides saying a past life regressionist. And it took me a little bit to get that. And then I'm like, oh, it's lifetime because it can be past or future, right? So I love
Right.
how you've worded that. So the channel link to Jason is down below, and he's doing a series right now, and he's only done one before, which is great because it was just question and answer, so you won't miss anything if you jump into the next one. And Jason, when's your next series going or next event going to be?
Yeah, it's I Thursday. This coming Thursday. I had to switch the time, so you'll have to check.
Is
I
it
think it's
four? Is it 4 Eastern? I believe.
yeah, right.
It's
Thank
about
you.
an hour, I think.
Yeah, so 4 Eastern. And it's just going to be focusing on kind of what goes on behind the scenes before we incarnate into lifetimes and uh yeah, that's all I'll kind of say about that. So there's a lot that goes on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, please subscribe to Jason and get him some followers. I think we got him quite a few last time. So let's do it again if you guys are not subscribed. And if you're watching on replay, hello. And please subscribe again to Jason and to myself if you want to. And it's free. And hey, Blissful, welcome. I don't think I've seen you before. So welcome. I love the kitty cat. All right. And let me see. Yeah, the poetic justice. Jeff Bailey says subscribe to Jason. Really great. Stripes and so chilled out. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, so Jackie's already put the link in there. What time it's going to be? Thank you, Jackie. So you guys can make sure to head over there and subscribe. All right, so I have a lot of questions. If anybody in the chat has questions for Jason, please feel free to put your question in. If you will, do it in caps and emojis. And again, we're not doing readings right now. We're doing just a little bit of an interview session because I want to know more. And so I think the people who were here last time want to know more. So we'll just jump into it if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm ready.
Right. So tell me a little bit more about your channel and about being the lifetime regressionist, and I think it's QHH. Is it T? Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So the channel I am working on, so the series is my first kind of solo venture. I'm all about supporting everyone that's in the community in different ways. So I usually am on other shows. A little stressful. Being solo is a little, it's a different beast in a way. But the series is just to get more in depth that I'm doing. It's called Light Space, and it's just focusing on very specific topics. It can kind of get I can only scratch so much of the surface of certain topics on interviews and such. So it's just a space to really delve in deeper. So definitely, if we talk about some things today that you want to know more about, feel free to put those questions either in here, or I'm open to suggestions. Because I kind of want it to be a shared viewer with me, just kind of being supportive and giving guidance. So the QHHT, yes, I am a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. If you're familiar with Dolores Cannon, it's the technique that she developed over a period of, I think it was 60 years or so. No, 45 years. And it's a type of hypnosis that goes a lot deeper than traditional forms of hypnosis. It works at a level called the theta state, which is what we experience before we fall asleep, before we wake up in the morning. It's kind of that limbo land. And historically, people who worked in hypnosis really didn't go into that territory or that level just because it is unpredictable. And the reason being that that's where our lifetimes are. That's where our higher self is, spirit guides, spirit teams. So it's actually, for hypnosis, that's the place to go just because there's healing and knowledge and guidance and everything else. And I love doing it. It's you can see lifetimes, and like I said, the healing is a big aspect where just understanding that the body is the messenger. And so when we experience pain and physical symptoms and disease or illness, it's essentially a message for us to pay attention to. And just by understanding what that message is, that's where the healing comes from. So that's the 30-second explanation.
That's awesome. We've got some questions already. Blissful wants to know, when did you start being aware of the spiritual plane as a regressionist?
That's a good question. I think it's something that I've always been aware of and conscious of. I grew up in a spiritual family with abilities. I came at it more as, especially in my 20s, I studied philosophy, and I came at it from more the intellectual route. Looking back, I don't think I was really ready. I knew a lot, but I didn't really understand a lot. So really understanding the spiritual plane. It has been a lifetime thing, but it's really come into focus, and I've had a lot of questions answered since I've been doing this, and I started doing this about 2 years ago, and it's just been incredible. And I don't know, I like answers, and so there's a lot of questions within those answers, but it's definitely been an awakening process for me. So
That's awesome. We've got one here. Let's see, kind of goes off of what you were just saying. Is your regressions an extension of counseling or empathic journey?
I hesitate to use the word counseling, just because it does have certain legal requirements. But um, as just in and through working lifetimes, I mean, the process itself, there are some regressionists out there who, I know that people have seen that it's more of a field trip. You go into a past life, you say, "Oh, this is kind of cool," you come back, and that's it. Which is she's a little bit different in that it's really intention based. So even before you have a session, you develop questions, and this helps actually your higher self and your spiritual team determine what lifetimes you'll see. Granted, they are already aware of your questions and what you'll see before that, because they know you better than you know yourself. And in that sense, the lifetimes that you see, the purpose of you know the purpose that's been explained to me is that this lifetime is most important. So whatever lifetime you see is in order to help you in this lifetime and to move forward on your path and purpose. So in that sense, it is a form of counseling or coaching. But the really awesome aspect of it is we call it, the higher self that is responsible for coordinating everything. It's you. So it's an aspect of yourself and all of us that we have that has access to all this knowledge and all this information. It's just that we largely haven't been taught how to tap into that. The empathic aspect of it, it is at least it's deeply profound in that when you see lifetimes, you actually 100% become that person in that particular space at that particular time. Um, the language will reflect the language used at that time. Awareness of, I've had clients who, I might have said something like, "Can you see through the window?" And they say, "What's a window?" So it's always this kind of awakening in terms of, okay, this person's really there. They don't really know what a window is.
Right.
So, but that includes all the emotions. It's deeply emotional sometimes, especially if the lifetimes are tragic, which it's pretty rare that there aren't any type of emotional upsets during lifetimes. But the incredible thing is that those releases, particularly if people's clients start crying in a lifetime or upset about something, um, it's kind of a release that they need that they might have carried on into this lifetime, or in terms of just understanding who they are as a spiritual being.
Right. Awesome, awesome answer. So, Patty, I got your question. I think that is more of a personal reading. So, I started for later on so that we'll have that. So, if you'll hang in there and welcome, by the way, I didn't see you slide in. Let me go to Poetic Justice Jeff again. Do you think that humanity will ever evolve to the point where our own timeless humanity, through higher consciousness, we will lose the imposition of time, aging, and death? Plus, has anyone identified themselves in a former life as an animal? Some good questions.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
show. That's a show in itself. Um, to answer the first part about, thank you for putting that up because I need to refer to it. It's a great question. Um, so we are in a process of evolution, I guess, to put it in the simplest terms, in terms of, um, it's not really we're evolving to a higher plane, but we're actually kind of returning to where we came. So if you want to call it, regression, uh, pun kind of intended, but it's the history of humanity on the earth is long and complex and complicated, and um 99% of which the general population is not aware. The higher consciousness is something that we used to have um on earth. Uh I'll just say that for the time being. But it was turned off, and our abilities were turned off after a specific point. So we're actually in the process of returning to that. If you've heard of the New Earth, being more aware of an example is like UFO sightings. People are seeing them more frequently, and it's not because they're just showing up, it's because we can now see them. There's a lot that we haven't been able to perceive just because of our own level of quote unquote advancement in terms of what we can see and experience. Um, the time, aging, and death. Um, just that is another show in itself, but um, time is a human construct.
Yeah.
It's difficult for us to. I mean, I know it, but I don't. It's difficult to grasp, and it's just because we're not really supposed to. It's how we kind of are the way we function on the planet. Um, which goes, into sessions I've had where I might ask a question of like how long will this take, or in terms of if information's given to me that's actually about the Earth and what's going on, I'll ask, and they say short time, but then I've had some times where they'll say 200 years as an estimate. So 200 years to them is a blink of an eye. In terms of aging, again, this is all about getting back to where we were. I really don't have a concrete answer to that. I do know that our concept of aging, our collective belief about aging, for example, life expectancy, 80 years or whatever it might be now, just the fact that we believe that to be the case, that's what makes it true. Our beliefs are extremely powerful. Um, so in a sense, I've had clients that are in their 70s or 80s, and they have all these medical conditions, and it kills me when doctors tell people, oh, you're getting older, you should expect this to go or give out, or your eyesight's going to go, or you're going to lose your hearing, and as a matter of fact, and so people accept it. From the spiritual side, it's extremely frustrating, and like what? It's none of that is supposed to happen. Our bodies are supposed to be perfect. The actual, I guess, life expectancy, quote unquote, is 1,000 years or more. I've had the higher selves and the spiritual teams explain to me, those ancient texts like the Mayans and the Egyptians, and even the Bible, where it said that people lived 20,000 years. They've said that's the case, and there's more to those explanations, just because we have had well, there were particular beings that were kind of human, but had other qualities that allowed them to live that long. So, again, the aging, it's a matter of personal beliefs. So if we get to the point of where we believe we can live longer as a collective society, then that will be the case. And the death question, that's interesting too, just because our physical bodies do eventually have an expiration, but I have had clients who've gone through different types of existence. For example, fairies. I had a client who she was a fairy in a past life, and she didn't really die. It was just the more she knew that she had, lived her life. She had thousands of children, which is a whole other story.
Wow.
Uh, and it's and I asked, I said, do you die? And she's like, no, it's just kind of my time, and so I decided to go back to the light, and that's it. So there, our concept of death isn't universal, so I don't know if that will change for us. Physical death, yes, will probably always be a factor, but our spirit never dies. And then anyone identified as an animal, yes.
Wow.
Actually, recently I had a client who I don't think I've actually heard this spoken about. Actually, particularly in Dolores's work, I haven't come across it before. But I had a client. He went to a time in, I think it was Egypt, a long, it was a while ago, and he was standing in the desert. Long story short, he would take care of animals, and so he was kind of at this oasis, and there were water buffalo and all these cheetahs that he felt an extreme connection with. And I would take him throughout the life, and he'd get really confused because it came to be that he was a cheetah, but he was also a man, and so he was actually a shapeshifter, um,
So cool.
which was like, wow, it was awesome, but it took a while to piece it together, and I don't think he really realized it until after we were talking, because in my mind I was thinking, is he a shapeshifter? Because sometimes he's a man, sometimes he's a cheetah. Um, and the really awesome part of it too is he eventually, I think he kind of stayed in the body of a cheetah, and he saw himself with a female cheetah that was his mate or partner. They had a son, I guess you would be able to put it, a child, and that was kind of this this loving relationship. And the purpose of a lifetime was for him to experience fatherhood, but it was in the form of a cheetah. And then his higher self also said that the female cheetah that was in that life is someone that's kind of a love interest in his life now. So it was
Wow.
pretty awesome. That's like the ultimate animal account, in my opinion. But I've had clients who were rocks. I've had clients who were trees, flowers, um, wolves. So yes, we all most likely at one point have had a lifetime as, whether it be a rock, a flower, a tree, um, a mouse. It's
Wow.
anything's possible.
That's great. Great answers. I kind of wanted to go off. I had one of my own that I
Hmm.
was wondering about. And so, has anyone had no experience whatsoever when they go under hypnosis, and then maybe they've said something during the recording, but they wake up and they just have no recollection of it whatsoever, or has there been nothing on a recording before as well?
You're asking really interesting questions. The interesting. I want to start with the last part, the recordings. I just from studying Dolores's work and all that she wrote about, and if you've read any of your books or listened to them, there's always parts where she kind of gives an account of, oh, the recording acted really strangely. It's sped up. The voices, you couldn't tell what was being said, or there's weird sounds, or anything like that, or just the recording is completely cut out. I recently, and that it, I was really stressed when it happened because it hadn't happened to me before. But I had a session with a client who, um, in all actuality, was a new um, soul to the planet, had never been here before. He had a lot of personal struggles, quote unquote, learning disabilities, and it ended up that he was, the spiritual light being, but his family didn't understand him. There was a lot of emotional, diagnosed mental health conditions, but it's because he was new to the planet without even knowing it. So this came
Oh,
through. Um, and so he wasn't shown a lifetime. um, but and the interesting thing was this, when his higher self, part of the hypnosis is we ask for the higher self to come through to ask questions and for healing. And the higher self came in, but then he stayed silent the rest of the time. I mean, I was asking questions, he really wasn't responding, so I really didn't know what was going on. And then when I brought him out, I asked, you mentioned that your higher self was there, but then nothing else came through. And he was like, oh, they were communicating with me. And he said that he
wow.
saw it as like this big, vibrant blue blanket that just laid on top of him. Um, so it was interesting in that his family is very analytical and probably would have picked everything apart. And so it really deep down, it made sense that this was just for him, this information or what have you received. I went to the recording to send it, and there was nothing there. And I was like, I freaked out at first. I thought, did I not turn it on? But then I specifically, I'm very careful about that, just because that's, without a recording, it's kind of pointless to have. I mean, it's important to have a session, but without that to reference, because it is part of the healing process and things like that. But then I actually brought it up with actually Kevin. I reached out and I was like, have you had this happen before? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And he's like, I've, a couple of times I've had sessions not record with people, with sitters he's had. So that was helpful, but it was kind of like this big aha moment. Like, there are things that shouldn't be recorded, especially when you're in a family that will pick things apart and, try to interpret things for you. So it was meant to be just for him. I forgot the first part of your question.
Okay, let me see here. No, I just was asking if anyone had the experience during the regression. You pretty much answered it.
Yeah.
So what I thought was interesting about what you just said is you said that he was covered by a vibrant blue blanket. And most people know, if they know anything about the chakras, that the throat chakra is blue, and that is the chakra of communication. So it's like he was being blanketed, and he was getting the communication just to himself, and maybe it wasn't meant to be, recorded.
That's yeah. I had not thought about that. Well, he said his favorite color is blue, but
Right.
obviously, yeah, I suspect that what you just said was that. Wow, that's awesome.
All right. This is Lisa. She said, "Do you think we can come back at any age, or we have to start all over from reincarnation?"
Oh, this is another good question. I don't think. Well, there's never a bad question, but sometimes, yeah, this is a complicated one. Generally speaking, we have to start over. From childbirth and everything else. There are cases where sometimes, and I haven't personally had this, I am aware of practitioners who have had, including Dolores, where for some reason or another, there's a being that is here to do something in terms of helping or not interfering, which is not allowed. That's a huge no-no in terms of Earth. But they incarnate kind of in a middle-aged body. How that happens, I really if someone just appears, I'm not sure how that happens exactly. But it's always, I think, just from like Dolores's reactions and in her work, it was kind of shocking. Like, so you never were a child, and they would say no. There are also instances where, and this isn't extremely common, but they're called walk-ins, and it's where, for example, on the spirit side, we plan our lives out with other beings, and we plan what our lessons we're going to learn. In some cases, we want to learn as much as possible in the shortest amount of time, and it's been described to me where we put all these marbles in a jar, like, I'm going to experience this. My mom's going to be abusive. My dad's going to be an alcoholic. I'm going to have some type of mental health challenges or a disability, and we keep piling all these things in so we learn from them. And our spirit team was like, oh, no, but we do it anyway. So, for people that, have a really hard time accepting we choose certain lifetimes just because they're so just, even the question, why would I ever choose this? That's kind of the answer. It's like we've put on so much to learn in one lifetime that it's overwhelming. In that case, sometimes, and I don't know how this works, there's an agreement where If it gets to be too much and a soul's taken on too much and just is, not really able to deal with a particular accumulation of circumstances, they can opt to make this agreement with another soul who will come in, and it's called a walk-in. Um, it's not something. It's not possession. It's nothing like that. It happens, but the soul that comes in retains all the memories, everything else. So uh, it's not like you just become a different person. You still kind of remain that person. I know this topic, it kind of creeps people out. At least it did when I officially heard it. But it's a little tweak, and it's not something that I think we consciously do. It's just happens behind the scenes. Like, I can't do this. Will you finish my life for me? And there are souls that will do that, and they'll have all your memories and everything else. I do know of one case where I think it was like she was a girl. This wasn't a personal client that I saw. That she had taken on too much, and she was like a light being. She was here to help the earth, but it was just too much for her to handle. And she went in. She was depressed. She was having a bunch of emotional issues. Her parents were aware of it, were extremely worried about her. And then this happened with a woman who actually had grown up, and this had happened in her past. But something happened when she was about 8 or 9, where her parents had noticed that she completely changed. She was positive, she was happy, a lot of the issues that she had had before then were gone. And she always was curious about it. And so when she had the hypnosis, her higher self said, there was a time when she was 8 that her original soul was too much, or had taken on too much, and a walk-in came in, and the soul kind of is her soul now. Again, it's complicated. This is like advanced past life type things, but and it's not meant to be here. Yeah. So in those cases, um, you know, some of us could be a different soul than we were when we were 2 or 3. We wouldn't know that. But in that sense, we can come in at any age. That's kind of a roundabout answer to that. So
Awesome. Awesome. And you've answered this question, I know, before, but I don't think Thomas was there. He says, has anyone had an alien past life in regression?
yes. Yeah. The thing is I think that that's always after you accept past life regressions, as a fact of the universe that we've had thousands of lifetimes. The next step is recognizing that not all those lifetimes were mostly, all on Earth. There are souls that have been on the Earth more, but there are also many of us, particularly now, that haven't been here before, or we've been here a long, long, long time ago, and we didn't want to come back, but we're here now because of helping the Earth and also raising vibrations and frequency. So a lot of us have been other beings. I'll throw in kind of the twist of some of us are. The possibility of having multiple lifetimes going on at once, like multiple responsibilities. Sometimes when we're sleeping and we have another existence, that's another element too. So sometimes we're not, I have had one client who is kind of aware of this, but just didn't really have the words or the awareness or vocabulary to really understand what was going on. Then he had multiple existences. Most of the time, it was at night. He was very aware of it, and it was just a matter of his higher self actually kind of saying, "This is what's going on, and this is what to do, how to work with it." So, again, complex question, but that's kind of the overview.
And this isn't so much a question, but I wanted to highlight it because I thought it was really beautiful. This is what Nancy said. Oh my goodness! Hold on.
Yep.
Sorry, my cat just knocked down my computer. That's all good. Can you still hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
Yeah. Well, I can read the question. So I'm almost 76 years old. My inside mindset is quite young. I've always strongly believed I would live past 100 of our years, having felt my core. My responsibility is to take care for my. Let me find the rest of
For
it.
my body.
Current body. Yes. Your higher self would say absolutely. You know, we work in a system that we take a lot of things as fact, um, particularly the medical community and science um, makes us believe that, like I said earlier, that you know in your case, I'm almost 76, therefore you should be experiencing all these physical symptoms. Your organs should be giving out, or whatever else that doctors might say at that age. Um, and the higher self, or your higher self, if you've experienced, um, it would be your higher self would just freak out, and it would be more like, no, that's absolutely not the case. What you're experiencing uh, are messages. And I will say that, and this is just kind of popping in, a realization of my own is that as we get older, older and more progressed, and the higher self knowing that, for example, we have this collective belief that 76 is up in years. There's a limited time in terms of fulfilling the lesson and contracts that we have coming in. So that's a lot of times why physical symptoms become stronger, because these are messages like, hey, this is important, we need to finish this. Hey, what are you not paying attention to? Eyesight is kind of one that we really don't consider to be an issue, but in all actuality, it's what aren't you seeing? Hearing loss is what aren't you hearing? What don't you want to hear? So as we quote get older, it's always about our spiritual team's like, hey, wake up. You're not moving forward, so we're going to make your legs, your bones ache. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, just so that you wake up. But that's not to say it has to be that way. So yes, if you believe that you would live past 100 years, then you will. We're powerful in that. Our beliefs make our reality. And yes, taking care of your body is extremely important. Your body is conscious. It is aware. It's here to help. And it's designed to be, spirit side calls it our vehicle. Sometimes it's the way we get around and we learn and we expand and we grow. So, that saying that our body's a temple, it's really true. It's a gift in that we are able to experience the earth plane and also learn. And the earth is the most difficult school. So yes. All your answers, Nancy, or questions.
Yeah, I love that question. I was thinking about the question I had when you were talking about that, about possible like treatment for physical ailments. You were talking about how the hypnosis can help that. What about like obesity? How would you go about if someone was obese and they came to you and they said, I want to help with this? Can you do a hypnosis that would help me to to lose weight, and then maybe it's caused by a past, lifetime or past trauma?
Yeah. So anything's possible with the healing in terms of QHHT. So it's just a matter of getting kind of the background why it's manifesting in your body. There's kind of a general roadmap to the body in terms of, if we think of it as just a highly symbolic body, in terms of if we have an issue that's going on somewhere in our bodies, whether it be weight or certain conditions with their feet or legs, there's a general way to look at it as, okay, so legs are classic. If you have leg pain, how are you not moving forward? How are you holding yourself back? And sometimes these have to do with past lives, sometimes they don't. The same thing goes with weight. It's kind of the classic understanding, if you are familiar with some of the works of people who kind of talk about the body in this way, um, is that what are you protecting yourself against? Or why do you have this defense system put up around you? That's not always the case, I've learned, and there are cases, for example, in Dolores's work that talk about this, that um, there can be ways in which your body remembers things from past lives that needs to be released. Um, so it's not always a case of diet and exercise. Sometimes I've had clients who were healthy and then something happened in their life that triggered a past life memory that they weren't aware of, and then they start taking on characteristics of that past life, which if they were overweight, that might be one explanation. Also, I've also had clients. I had a client a while ago who really, he lived in New York and he invested in this property in Florida, and it was when he originally set the full plan up, it would take 8 years for him to be able to own the property and live in Florida, and he had weight issues. But no matter what he did, he couldn't really get rid of the weight. And then we did the hypnosis, and it came to be that his higher self was like, you can't just put your life on hold and not be living your life just because you're waiting for something that's going to happen in the future. You have to live in the present. So in that sense, he was weighing himself down and not living his life. So that was the explanation for his physical body. It was his body's way of saying, hey, you need to live, you need to fulfill what you need to do. You can't just put everything on hold until you're somewhere else. So I will say that there are sometimes healings don't happen. It's not guaranteed. One of them is that there's a lesson that a person needs to learn from it. And this can always be, sometimes people are kind of, they have their heads in the clouds all the time, and they kind of live in not on earth. You might know people like this, and they'll have this like chronic foot pain or chronic leg pain, and sometimes that's some place to have people to remind them, hey, they're in their physical body, they need to be grounded, they need to be fulfilling your contract. And then there's also instances where people are so consumed by their physical conditions and being sick or having a disease or always looking for something that's wrong with themselves. It might be those people that that all they talk about is their physical and health conditions all the time. In those cases, that becomes their identity, and the higher self will often say, "We can't heal this right now just because she wouldn't know who she is if she wasn't sick all the time." And that's and sometimes people use that as a way of manipulation, as a place of power, making people feel guilty because they're sick or ill. I mean, that's not everyone who's sick. That's just a few, but there are people like that. Some of you might know people like that. And it's always that if they really want to get well, they have to not identify with their illnesses anymore. So weight's one option. But it always is coming in with the understanding, particularly with hypnosis, that there might be reasons why it's not healed, or it's also maybe sometimes a commitment to, I'm going to change this about my life or my thought processes or how I see things, and that will help release from our body itself. So healing is more complicated.
Yeah.
But anything's possible. So it's kind of a double-edged, I want to say sword, but perspective.
Gotcha. Awesome. So I had a question as well about Dolores Cannon, and I started to read one of her books, and I'm about halfway through, and it is, I'm trying to remember, I remembered just a minute ago, but it's The Convoluted Universe. Yeah. And I started on part one of that. Well, I think there's several novels, right? With that
Hmm.
one. And I was kind of wondering, is there one where it just kind of takes you to the beginning of what she does and a great one to start with? Because I'm not sure it was very, very interesting. I'm still reading it. But I was wondering if there's another one that you could maybe start with to, start out that you don't know much about this stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question because that actually comes up a lot, particularly with her work, just because as she gets um, I guess the best way to put it is when she first started doing this in the 60s with her husband, it wasn't something that was planned. They learned hypnosis in order to lose weight and to stop smoking. Her husband was more the one that actually was responsible for, you know, doing more of the hypnosis for other people as well. And he was in the military, and this woman who was on the base um, actually came to him because she wanted to lose weight. And it just so happened that when he was doing hypnosis with her, really strange and random things started happening where she was in a different lifetime. She began speaking differently. Um, and the whole account of that is in Five Lives Remembered. So that's the very first book that of Dolores's that actually talks about this, of this woman who, once he kind of discovered, okay, she's in a lifetime. I think she was actually, I know she was in the 1920s. She was a flapper. Um, she even talked like how people in the 20s and the way that she addressed people. And um, he kept working with her, and slowly things started coming in that was higher self and all that. It's a great book and kind of like the first step if you're interested about Dolores and everything else. um, but the progression of the books is really important because, and Dolores does this a lot in her work, is that the information she received, which she started doing it after her husband couldn't do it anymore. The information she received was given in little bits. So her earlier work is much more simple concepts and things like that. So because they've kind of like admitted to, you can't send a baby to college or, advanced program in metaphysics and extraterrestrials without starting somewhere. Kindergarten's probably a good place to start. So
Yeah.
you actually will see this progression through her books. Convoluted Universe series is awesome. There are 5 books. There are some that she wrote beforehand. So if you are interested, I would definitely kind of start there. In fact, I know in Convoluted Universe book 1, she says, if this topic's new to you, to read The Custodians.
Custodians. Yeah, I was wondering about that one.
And also there's a Gardener too. Those are 2 great books to read if you want to focus more so on how extraterrestrials and spiritual beings are involved in the seeding of the planet, and the roles of extraterrestrials and where we've come from. So it's kind of like the history of humanity in a way.
Right.
Um,
And you
yeah.
said you started with Nostradamus. Is that correct? I think I remember you saying that earlier.
I actually, the first book I wanted to read was Convoluted Universe, the first book. And then when
Right.
she said that in the preface, you might want to start with The Custodians. I read that first. That was the first book. And
The
then
custodians. Okay.
Nostradamus, she has, those are 3 books. I had developed the understanding that his predictions were the worst case scenario, so they weren't set in stone. And 2, our timeline is different now than what he was seeing, which was actually kind of the reason why he wrote the quatrains, was to keep us
Right.
from going down the worst possible scenario. Um, but even though that they're not relevant, the books are fascinating in just understanding how our concept of time is so limited, and that when she was communicating with him, he was actually alive and living his own life, and 1600s, I think it was. Um, so it's just fascinating just how she communicated with him and everyone, um, and everything. So
Well, awesome. Yeah, everybody's saying how fascinating this is. We'll take one more here, and then we'll see what we can do after here. This is from Linda. Can physical illness or conditions come from family members saying this runs in the family, setting you up for expecting it to happen to you? I have a feeling I know the answer to this one.
it's that's an awesome question. Because I know as a practitioner, it's not common, but sometimes people have a little bit of pushback in terms of it being messages, but at the same time being genetically predisposed to certain mental health conditions or physical conditions or alcoholism or whatever else. Um, you have it exactly right, Linda, that it, the higher self and spiritual side does recognize we have, genetics. They don't. It's not to say that they don't have a factor in our lives. Just as environmental pollution and things we put in our body also kind of have a factor in our lives. But by virtue of us having a system that says if you have a family history of cancer or lung cancer or high blood pressure, it kind of makes us assume, because we have so much trust in certain belief systems, that okay, well, I guess I should be careful with how I live my life because I might get high blood pressure. Or you have high blood pressure and you say, oh well, it's explained because it runs from my family. We have the power to change that, and our DNA is also um, flexible, in that we can actually, and I wish I knew the exact process. We can ask for or change our DNA in certain ways. But again, this is always within particular limits of, we have a life path, we have a purpose. There are learning, lessons in place. So it's not like we could say, oh, I want wings. Um, if, that probably could happen if enough of us believed it.
Right.
So yeah, so the familial lines in terms of physical health and issues and conditions is the genetic factor, but that's not set in stone. We have the power to step outside that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk, if you want to, about the series or yourself. Is there anything that you want to highlight that we could look forward to? I know the next one is All the World is a Stage, and I'm there. That's, that's like so interesting to me. But is there anything you can give us that you'd like to highlight so that we know what's coming
Yeah,
up this
yeah.
season?
Um, the All the World's a Stage. It's true. Shakespeare had it right. We are the writers, we are the producers, we are the stagehands, we are the actors, all within our own play. Um,
Right.
and it kind of is also a reason why it always comes through in sessions and from spirit that we take life too seriously. This what we're experiencing, we created for ourselves, even in times where like, why did I choose this? So the show will be about kind of that process and what I just said in more detail. And I mean, that's the general sense. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but it kind of touches on some of the things that I talked about today. So if you want to go deeper into specific topics, because I know there's so much information, and it will help to kind of go deeper than I can on my shows and such.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you don't mind one more, I was very curious about this one too from Jeff. Wants to know, are QHHT hypnosis nationwide if I wanted it done?
You can go to the it's qhhtofficial.com, and there's a practitioners page, and you can search. They're actually worldwide, um, and you can search by country, region, in the U.S. Obviously, states and cities, and see who's there. Um, and in fact, even if you know of QHH practitioners around you, to do your research, because it's about finding someone who you feel a connection with. If it's a person based on your research that you really don't feel you resonate with very much, I wouldn't go see them. So it does give you a little bit of responsibility in finding someone who meshes well with you, that you feel you can trust, to do hypnosis. So it's important to do that type of work. Um, but yes, there are several practitioners throughout the country and the world. So I would definitely go there to um, see what's available. There are interns that are kind of practitioners in training. Part of becoming a practitioner is doing 25 free sessions in order to get your level one. So they are always looking for clients, and you can see those interns on the website too. So if you want to try it out with the newer practitioner, um, that might be a way to go too. Um, Level one practitioners have done, it used to be they've done over 50 sessions. I think that's a little bit different now. And then level three practitioners have over 125 sessions, and are extremely involved in the PHHD community and such.
That's awesome. So, if you don't mind, we might do a couple questions before we take off. So, if anyone has any readings that they want done with me and Jason, please put your questions in caps and emojis for me and for us. And let me get back to my little itinerary here. I was telling Jason, without it, I'm just like a squirrel running around. So, if you would, like I said, put them in emojis. No political, legal, health, or third party questions, please. And if you want to show your love and support from my channel, you can put that in one of the links below, and you'll get to the front of the line. But we'll probably do just a couple, and then we will conclude. But if you guys want to go ahead and put your questions in, I'll start starring them. And Ness, I've got your questions. Thanks for being here. And I see you on Jason's channel coming over. So she's over there, or they are. And let me see. Hey, Richie, welcome. Glad you are here. You're welcome, Ness. Anybody else who wants to put their question in? Is Patty73 still here? Because I still have your question from before if you are here. So let me know. And if anybody else has any personal questions, feel free to put those in. And thank you for the moderators. Viviani, I said hi to you. I don't know if you saw me, but welcome. And thank you guys for moderating. The Viviani and all the other moderators have been doing such a great job. Putting all the links in for Jason. And,
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that so much.
yeah, Thomas just subscribed to you. Fascinating subject.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm not sure Patty73 is still here, so we can go to Ness and answer that question first. Let me see if I can get to it. A card pull for me this week. Thanks. Okay. And do you use you sometimes use cards, but however you want to do that, Jason, is I'm sure
Yeah,
acceptable to Ness. So
I'll use cards.
Or she said, or an energy pull, whatever feels natural.
I think this kind of might be both.
Great.
So the first card I have is relaxation. So seems as though maybe you've come through a time of transition, gates of truth, success expands in your life. So whether you've worked on something, something to be proud of, it seems like this is the week to relax and kind of unwind and take space for yourself after having some type of great achievement that you've gone through.
That's awesome. I've got one very similar. So relaxation, and you got abundance as well. And it says, count your blessings. So a state of gratitude could be, while you're relaxing, and that will just bring in more good things, to you. Karma will be in your favor, I think, if you do that. So that's what I got for you. And this is the cover of the, I can't think, the Goddess Oracle, or Goddess Dream Oracle. So this is the cover card, as I call it. So very beautiful cards. I think both of them. So I think relaxing and to just being in the state of gratitude and counting your blessings would be good for you right now. So let me see here. Hey, Gina M, welcome. And let me take a couple more. We'll go ahead and close the questions for now because we have a couple here now. And let me see.
I'll also say, Ness, that it's okay to have fun. Life doesn't have to be, like I said earlier, life doesn't have to be so complicated and stressful all the time. That's one thing that Spirit always says is it's okay to take time for yourself, and it's actually extremely important. And worrying does not get us anywhere. In fact, having faith and knowing that they're there to support us and we have the power to manifest things as we want. It's okay to relax and take some time.
All right. Like she said, thank you. Arrived at the project last week. It should be chilling and taking the wash before my next project the next week. Yeah, that's perfect. All right. And let me see here. This one might go back a little bit to where we're doing the interview process, but think this is for you, Jason. What is the purpose of autism on this planet?
So I will say that the mental health or concepts of mental health are limited in the way that they're practiced, that there's so much more that isn't talked about, discussed, or understood. It's one of the reasons why I jumped into QHHT and left my counseling program or my education grad program, just because I know that there is much more to the story. Autism and some of the things like ADHD, it all has to do with the transition that we're going through. There is a specific, well, not specific, but the level and vibration and frequency of quote unquote autism and ADHD is one that we're actually going towards. It's that we just don't have a society and a system in place that is supportive and knowledgeable in how to accommodate and work with people who have been diagnosed with, as autistic or ADHD. I do know in terms of ADHD, the higher self has said consistently that putting them on drugs to calm them down, slow them down is the worst thing that can be done, and that they're being distracted easily is just because they have the capacity to process so many different things at the same time. Focusing on one thing at a time is in a roundabout way boring because they're capable of so much more. In classroom setting, I used to be a teacher, so I know. I've worked with kids that have been diagnosed with autism and other things, and they're bored. That's what it really comes down to. And they don't have to practice math equations 25 million times. They don't have to write essays 10 different times. They don't have to like regurgitate things 5 million times because they get it and they're ready. And that's like, okay, let's move on. So it's really, you know, I can't speak for all I know there's the autism spectrum, but I think I've recently heard that that's going out of phase, that there's something else that's being put in its place. So everything does have a purpose. And it's just being hyper aware of we are in a period of extreme transition. So there's a lot of cases of ADHD, for example, and it's because we also have a lot of new beings and energies, and we're all raising in vibration. So I would just be leery of mental health diagnoses or diagnoses, if you want to put it that way.
All right. Awesome. Okay, and we got one more here. And Jackie, let me know if Patty73 comes back, but I don't believe that she is still here. So we'll move on to Lena. Is Lena still here? Hey, Lightworker, welcome. See if Lena is still here for her question. May not be. See if Jackie can for a message here. And Beck says, thanks so much, so helpful. Yeah. And while we're waiting here, I was going to kind of comment on what Jason just said, that I really, really believe that, you know, what he's saying is true about the ADHD, because I was taking psychology in college. And when I did, I had to take a childhood psychology class, and ADHD was, you know, right there up there in the top of what we we're learning. And I was like, this sounds like me even now. Like, why is this happening? So I went to the my counselor, who was the teacher. I said, I think I'm self-diagnosing myself because I think I have ADHD, and I've just been told all the time that I didn't pay attention. And she said, do this. She said, get something when you go into your classes, and that you can do while you're listening, and do two or three things at the same time and see what happens. And so I went into my classes where they didn't care, you know, if you sat in the back. And college is totally different. You can sit there and read the newspaper, and the professor won't say a word to you. And I just got the newspaper out every day, and I'd start looking at the sports and really getting into it, drinking my coffee. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, that sounds like this. And I'd raise my hand, and the stunned teacher would be like, yeah. And I'll be like, do you mean blah, 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 blah. And it was exactly what he meant. He's like, yes, I did. That's exactly right. And so it's what you're saying is it's kind of being bored, and then you can't concentrate on anything. But when
Right.
there's several things going on at the same time, it's almost like a superpower, isn't it? Because you can pay attention to several things at the same time going on around
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. It's just a matter of perspective. And I was fortunate as a teacher. I was trained in a type of education called constructivism, where, it isn't the, powerful teacher at the front of the classroom. It's a process of really tapping into students, passions, their interests, their strengths, and their life experiences, in order to help them learn. So, it's having a greater concept of something, whether it be, I was an English teacher, so Shakespeare, I don't know, making it relevant, and that they, students would do a project that makes sense to them. I worked in downtown LA, so there was obviously a lot more going on in home lives and things like that. So it was kind of this, wasn't, iron fists classrooms. And so I think that in itself is kind of moving towards being more aware and conscious of what each student can do and what they're capable of. And I know that Dolores did have some clients that, the ADHD was becoming more and more prominent. And the information she received was they just, give them another project to do. Give them, challenge them because they're bored. They need something else to focus on too. And it's not like they'll be like, oh no, I can't do that. It's too much. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of not how different individuals can be made to fit into society, but rather I think it's more how society can change and advance and grow, because I think that we're at a point where it is kind of obsolete and things are changing and need to change, and they will.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Well, it looks like that is the end of our questions. So, Jason, I just want to thank you so much for
Yeah,
being here and for all those hard answers that you were able to do and to answer for us. So, to
yeah,
those questions, that was pretty incredible. So, this has been really exciting. So, and everybody's saying so in the comments too. There, if you could see.
awesome.
But and Beck is actually on in your channel as well.
Oh,
So
awesome.
awesome. Thank you guys for being here. And if you want to check out Jason and his series, I highly, highly recommend it. So I'm planning on being there.
Yeah,
And the next one is, I think we checked, and it is going to be Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you're there for that, and make sure you subscribe to Jason if you haven't
mhm,
already. It's down in the description below. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate you guys. So,
yeah. Thank you
thanks.
so much. Thanks for all the wonderful questions and having me back on. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, and we will see you all soon. And I have another live with Wisdom Joan, guys, at 3 p.m. and she is fantastic as well. She has a very soft, cool demeanor, and this wonderful lady. So if you want to come back at 3 for that, that would be fantastic. And in the meantime, everybody have a great day. All right, bye bye.
Bye.